Hello everyone, it's John Gonzalez, the Communications Director here at the Catholic Diocese of Saginaw in Saginaw, Michigan. Welcome to United in Mission, One Heart and Mind podcast. Something we started late in the year last year, and we're going to continue it with 2025 because it's a new year, and why not? We're having a lot of fun with the podcast. Thank you for tuning in to our previous episodes. Right now I'm joined by Stacey Trapani, and Stacey is our Executive Director of Little Books here at the Diocese of Saginaw. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It's fun because old college buddy, right?
We go way back. Yeah.
From our CMU, Central Michigan University days. Fire up, right?
Fire up chips.
Fire up. Lifers. There we go. So it's so much fun to run into you. We kind of reacquainted with each other back in Indianapolis.
Yes, at the National Eucharistic Congress.
Last summer, and I'm like, no way, you're here. And you're like, no way, you're here. And I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to be working there this fall. And sure enough,
it's a lot of fun. It's great fun having you. It's fun to pick on you.
It's fun to pick on you, too, as well. So, we do go back a long way. So it's great to see you again.
Yeah, it's good to see you, too.
Yes,
and I'm really excited about what you're doing with the podcast. It's really good.
Thank you. Yeah, the podcast is just kind of a labor of love for me. And I found some very talented people here that also share my enthusiasm for the podcast. Yeah, so nice. I'm excited to kind of launch this and other podcasts. So we're just getting started, getting our feet wet here and spreading the word about what's happening here in the Diocese of Saginaw. We mentioned the Eucharistic Congress from this summer. So it's apropos, right? That today's topic is we're going to talk about little books. You might have heard about little books. I actually knew about little books before I came to Saginaw, and a new venture that you're starting. So real quick, before we talk about this new venture with little books, just give us a quick little history, because I know you got a big milestone coming up.
Yeah, we do. We'll be back to another podcast for that one. Just a quick history of little books. So in 2000, a previous bishop, Bishop Ken Untner, started the Little Black Book for Lent, and his goal was to get people just to take some quiet time and pray. A little prophetic now, it's even more important to have that quiet time. Those books turned into multiple other books, and we sell, over 2 million copies a year.
How many copies?
2.2 last year we sold.
Wow.
To parishes all over the United States, Australia, in Canada, other places in Europe. So they're very popular. We've got a great following, and so that's sort of one of the trademarks of the little book is on the left-hand side is a gospel, follow one gospel all the way through a season, for example, Lent.
Right.
And on the on the left-hand side, it's interesting facts, interesting information about saints or Catholic traditions and sacraments, things like that. People really like that. So our new book is in the same format.
Well, that's great. So very quick, before we get to the new book, so the Little Black Book is for Lent, and then the blue book is for Advent.
Yep, Advent, Christmas, 2 seasons together. And then we have an Easter book as well. And so the Easter season is one of our longest seasons, so that starts obviously right after Lent. And then we have some children's books for Lent and stewardship books, a couple other offerings.
Great. All right, so let's talk about this new book.
Okay. You want to see it?
Yeah, I want to see it, yeah.
I brought this for you.
Ooh, thank you.
I brought one for Tim, too. Everybody say hi to him behind the camera.
Behind the camera. Hi, Tim.
And so this is a little gold book. And it really sort of was inspired by the Eucharistic revival that we are in the process of. And I know that some people have heard about the study that said a majority of Catholics don't believe in or understand the real presence. And so that spurred the Eucharistic revival and the National Eucharistic Congress, which happened last July in Indianapolis, which is a fantastic event that we were able to attend. And so we started thinking about it, and we knew that Bishop Ken had a great love for the Eucharist because often in his homilies, he would turn it back around to that at the end and talk about how we're Eucharistic people and what that means. Not just what happens at church, but how we're asked to go live our lives.
Right.
And so we said, what about if we did a book on the Eucharist? So we have all of Bishop Ken's materials digitized. So we started looking through all of his archives, searching for content, and we did have enough. So we pulled it together in a book.
How do you do that? Just like do a search and just say the Eucharist and
Yeah,
see what he...
I searched Eucharist, body and blood, communion, Holy Communion, everything, host, anything you could think of, any name you could think of for Eucharist to see what would pop up. And some, there was a lot.
I'm sure, yeah. Well, this is, I'm sorry, the journalist in me wants to know, like, how did they do this, right?
Yeah.
That's really cool. So let me ask you this question, because I know with the other two books, with Lent and Advent, you have distinct seasons, right? So with the Eucharist, it's like every day. It's not like it's a season.
Yeah, good question.
How did you manage that, or what's the format of this book?
Yeah, so this is 30 days of reflections. Okay. So take a month. You could take that month straight in a month. You could take 30 days every other day. You could do it however you want. There's no date on it like the other books. Okay. So you can pick it. It's perfect for ordinary time. Really great for ordinary time. Or that whole time, September up until Advent, there's a lot of time there. Maybe you could spend that time focusing on the Eucharist and what it means to you.
So this could be good for like men's group, women's groups, parish might have a evangelization group, or maybe your whole family wants to do it, right?
Yeah, we hear lots of stories of families who sit down at the kitchen table and every night they read a page of the book. It's great for whole church catechesis. A lot of times churches want to give something to their parishioners, and this is a perfect thing to give, and you can even make a whole program around it if you want, like you said.
Yeah. Well, Stacey, I would imagine a project like this takes a lot of work, and you wouldn't know, like, behind the scenes. I mean, you pick up the book and you're like, okay, it's a little book. I mean, how hard could this be? But being a journalist and a writer myself, and and trying to learn more about my faith, our faith, right? And you know that it took a lot of time to put this together. Take me through the process. Like, when was the germ of the idea? Like, when was it? Was it in July at the National Eucharistic Congress, or was it before that? And like, when did it really pick up steam?
Yeah. The germ of the idea actually came a little bit before that, because we would go to conferences and a lot of times people would ask if we have a First Communion book. So we started working on a First Communion book, and while we were working on it, we said, we need an adult book just as much as a First Communion book. And so we sort of put the First Communion book aside a little bit because of the Eucharistic revival and what was happening with the Congress and everything, and put all of our focus onto this. And so it really consisted of a lot of digging through published materials of Bishop Ken's, anything we had in the archives, a lot of prayer over it, because we had to get this right. We did not want to get it wrong, because if this is the source and summit of our faith, it's so important to what we believe, and we just really wanted to get it right. And for that reason, we had reviewers looking at the material. Father Bob Byrne is a consultant to Little Books, and he's been instrumental for me and just such a wonderful help. And so we had a lot of back and forth, and he was really committed to making sure too that we got it right. On the left-hand side, the kind of, we call it the interesting fact side, we just sort of sat down and said, what don't people understand? Like, why is the altar set up the way it is? Why do we say, Lord, I'm not worthy that you should enter under my roof? So we explored, what's a doxology? We had all kinds of things that we started saying, what might people want to know? And so we explored that. We explored Eucharistic miracles and saints who had a special devotion to the Eucharist. So those are all some of the things that you see on the left side. It really was a process of brainstorming and saying, okay, if I wanted to know everything I could, what should be here? And that's how it came about.
I love with the saints, you have a couple of newbies in there, right? A couple of saints to be this year.
Yes, this year, yes. Blessed Carlo Acutis is one of them. And he was very prominently displayed at the Eucharistic Congress. And we weren't able to get in to see that because the line was so long.
Yeah.
Did you see it?
I did not. Well, I was, so another story for another day, but I was able to get to Rome last year. I was able to go visit his site there. So it was pretty incredible. It was actually in Assisi is where that's at. You can see his incorruptible body there as well.
Oh, wow.
So it's something else. But for young people to have a saint that they can relate to, wore tennis shoes, he was a kid, played soccer, played video games, and he even talked about the moderation of playing video games, and he was in touch with what was happening, like with with our youth culture today. So he's very important. He's an important saint to this generation. But I love that about little books. In this book about the Eucharist is that you get that history of saints and, like you said, of different aspects of our faith that we want to know more about. I think that's just as important as what's on the right-hand side, in reading those words. You mentioned the study that from Pew Research Center that said 2/3 of Catholics don't believe in the real presence of Jesus in the Eucharist. How did that, knowing that fact, how did that play a role into putting this together? Because I'm sure you prayed a lot about this.
Yeah, we did pray a lot about it. And I related a story to you at one point, when we were really going through a lot of revisions and I was feeling a little bit lost. I took everything I had, all the papers I had, every bit of research, and we are fortunate to have a chapel here in this building, and I put it all on the altar and sat there and prayed with it. And I just said, God, whatever you want this book to be, please help us, tell us. And we had prayed together about it many other times, but in this particular time, I felt like it was a little bit of a turning point for us after that, because things just sort of came together, and it really helped cement what the content would be, because that Pew Research, I think, I hope that that's not really true. I hope that it really isn't 2/3 of the Catholic population doesn't believe in the real presence. But one of the things about the little book that's super unique is that Bishop kind of had a way of relating to people. He liked to call it kitchen table theology. So how would you talk around your kitchen table? And so I think that's one of the reasons why his books are popular, is because they're understandable. Right. They're relatable to people in normal human terms. They're not too Catholic-y or too churchy for the average person. And so I think that's sort of our answer to that Pew Research study is we're just going to break it down for you. We're going to make it simple. We're going to say this is the essence of it. This is what you should know.
I know there have been some more research after that study that kind of says, well, the numbers were kind of skewed, and so there's more out there. But the reality is that is a tough thing for a lot of people, including some Catholics, to really grasp the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist. Getting to the point about the kind of the kitchen table theology, right? I also love the fact that I know that Bishop Ken was part of this thinking as well. It's like we don't kind of dumb down the theology. Right. We just reinforce it, but make it more relatable.
Exactly.
So that way anyone picking it up can go like, oh, that's what they're talking about.
Right, exactly.
Because sometimes it can go over your head, and you have to be a theologian to understand.
Right. And the other thing that he likes to do is he likes to say at the end, think about that for a while. Ponder this for a while, reflect on it. He's asking people to go deeper, spend that quiet time. And we know how important that is in this day and age with all the noise that we have. And that's one of the things he really wanted, is he really wanted people to spend that quiet time.
And I think, that's what comes through. And I think part of it is that prayer, right? And, you mentioned that, that you prayed. You brought it all in front of God, and you said, all right, hey, if this is supposed to be something, let it be, right? And I think that's one thing I love about our Bishop Bruce, right? Is that he understands that power of prayer. And where I'm going with that is that when I was in Indianapolis, and I remember hearing Bishop Cousins talk about how we got to the point of having this, 60,000 people at this football stadium, Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, right? How they got there and how that process came to be. And then you were relating your story, and I'm thinking prayer is so powerful, He was having some stumbling blocks as well of organizing this major event. And he said they just stopped in the middle of a meeting and went to their chapel and just prayed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's exactly what he did. And then one of my first meetings here with Bishop Bruce and the leadership team, we were also having some similar issues of whatever the topic was. I don't even remember because I was so new. And we went to the chapel and prayed.
Yeah.
And I was like, what a great way to approach anything.
Yeah.
Right? Whether you're having, trying to get a loan for a car or how to pay for college or, all these things, right?
Right.
You just don't sit there like, well, what am I going to do? You pray.
Yeah. And the answers come. They might not come when you want them, but they'll come eventually. Yeah. And Bishop Bruce has been a big supporter of this process and a big supporter of the book. And I learned something new with this, and that's about the imprimatur. Do you know
Well,
about
I was
that?
going to ask you. So here's a title, right? Like, when I just glanced at this, like, what is the imprimatur?
So,
I don't even know.
yeah, it basically, I'm not going to get it all the technical words right, but it basically says this is aligned to Catholic teaching. And bishops have that authority. That's one of their jobs, is to determine if things that they're publishing are aligned to Catholic teaching. So that's not all of it, but that's for this book, that's what it means.
Right.
And so we have somebody who works in our diocese, Dr. Dan Osborne, and he provides the initial, I think it's called Neil Obstat.
Yeah.
And so he looked through it and made sure everything was aligned to Catholic teaching on the Eucharist, which is so important. We were so grateful that he did that. And so then he sends it to Bishop Bruce, and Bishop Bruce gives it the imprimatur. And I know a lot of people will look for that. They want to make sure what they're sharing with their, youth groups, faith formation, they want to make sure that it's following Catholic teaching. So we have the blessing there.
Yeah.
It's all good, so people can buy with confidence. It's our good housekeeping seal.
I love it. Stacey Trapani, Executive Director of Little Books. We appreciate you being on this show.
Thanks for having me.
If there's anything else you would say to people that are like, hey, how do I get this book? Where do I go? Is it available in my bookstore? Is it available in my parish? How can they get their hands on it?
Yeah, you can go to our website, littlebooks.org, and find it there. Churches are buying it the same way they buy the Lent book or the Advent book. So you might see it in your parish, but if you don't see it, let your priest know that we have this, and it's a resource that your church might be able to use.
Great. Any last thing you want to say about the power of this book? Because, I have really wondered about what this is like, and, spend some quiet time with the Lord really makes a bold statement there. So, Stacey, I'm sure you had a lot of people help you with this project.
Yeah.
Anyone you want to think up there?
I mentioned Father Bob Byrne, and I mentioned Dad Osborne. Father Pete Gaspini looked at the book. Erin Luby Carlson, our writer editor, she was just instrumental in providing guidance and help to me. We have an incredible staff at Little Books, and they've been so supportive. Janie and Jen and Daleen and Emma, that they just have all been just really behind the project and really helping get it out. And of course, Bishop Bruce, who's just always wonderfully supportive. So, and I hope I'm not forgetting anybody. And if I am, I'm grateful. Thank you.
Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I just encourage people to take a look. There might just be a big nugget in there. You just never know how God might be moving in your life. And this might be one of the ways. I
like that. A big nugget in a little book.
Yes, exactly.
Take care, everyone. We'll see you soon. Can't wait to get to our next episode here on United in Mission, One Heart and Mind, the podcast. Take care. Have a great time. See you soon.
I know.